All right, for the sake of our event, I do have a little introduction that I want to offer to provide context for our viewing audience today, so bear with me while I kick it off, and then we are going to run down our lineup up here, okay? And then we may not get to everybody today, as you know, because I don't want anybody to feel unduly rushed, so we do have the room on Wednesday as well, okay? So here we go. Welcome. Good morning. Thanks for coming out on this beautiful spring day. My name is Mike McGuire, as all of you know. I'm a professor of communications here at Moraine Valley, and today we're here with Composition 2 students. Composition 2 is a course that introduces students to college-level research and writing. College-level research writing. To some, that may sound like a rather dull enterprise, rife with long hours isolated in the bowels of a college library, sitting glossy-eyed, basked in the glow of a computer screen, spiraling aimlessly down the rabbit hole of an academic database. Well, while students may have spent their fair share of time in such precarious positions this semester, most did far more than that. Together, we've made this semester not just an exercise in academic thought, but one of action. This semester, we've used a method known as critical service learning. Critical service learning is a pedagogical approach that connects an enhanced academic experience, civic skills, and service with the community in order to better understand the social issues that affect us all, while at the same time working to create positive change. Rather than limit ourselves to the typical confines of classroom, library, and digital web, students this semester have collectively partnered with 23 community nonprofit agencies as a way of conducting fieldwork research alongside experts in fields ranging from food insecurity, disability rights, early childhood education, elder care, animal welfare, immigrant rights, homelessness and housing, cancer support, ecological restoration, and extreme global poverty. Students combine this fieldwork research with their own personal writing and other intensive research efforts. Ultimately, they work to raise their own levels of awareness and critical consciousness on these issues so that today they could share with you their understanding and call you to action. Please listen carefully to these speakers today with an open mind and an open heart as they weave together their stories of self, a story of us, and most significantly, the story of now.
By a show of hands, how many of you think we need water? You're right, we do need water. Now what if I told you that in 20 years from now, we'll feel the effects of our water usage today? Ian Stewart, the president of the National Royal Scottish Geographical Society, said just that in an article published by the BBC. Now, what he means by effects is that some countries won't even have a sustainable or reliable water source to drink from. In other countries, the price of water will skyrocket so high to the point where it won't even be attainable. Now, you're probably wondering why I became so knowledgeable and passionate about this. Well, it all started on my 13th birthday. I remember the pool being filled up and all of my friends, jumping in there, splashing all the water over the edges, and the kiddie pool for the smaller kids being filled, and all that just being poured out the next day. Even before the party, I remember my grandma making these huge pots of noodles and then just pouring all that down the drain. And I even remember my neighbors, power washing their driveway, their house, and car. And I was remembering, on my birthday, I remember, we used a lot of water today. So I did what any 13-year-old would do, and I went on the internet and looked it up, all the stuff about water usage and stuff like that, how much we had and all that. And what I found was that 2% of all water on Earth is fresh water. The other 98% salt water. Now, you may not know that 1/3 of that 2% is the stuff we can actually drink. 2/3 of that 2% is locked in glaciers. We can't harvest that because it'll ruin the climate on Earth. Now, we have proof that we're using too much water for the Earth to replenish naturally. So science has found a way to take salt water and make it into fresh water, but it takes up too much energy to be viable right now. So we need to give science time to make it more energy efficient. So you can do that by just being aware of your water usage and just using less overall. Now, you can do that by turning off your faucet when you're brushing your teeth. You can do that by taking quicker showers, even flushing. If you were to alternate your flushes, you'd effectively be saving like half a gallon to like 1.5 gallon, depending on your toilet, per flush, and that's a lot of water. So don't flush the future way. Conserve your water. Thank you.
My name is Luis Cazares, and I did volunteer work at the rescue. Since the age of 4, I remember always being around these animals. My father, he actually still owns a farm. It's Indiana, it's Lowell, Indiana, and we would take care of animals there, like horses, dogs, cats, anything you name it, chickens, anything like at a farm, you name it. We would provide them food, shelter, like medicine, and we would just help them out. And every time we would help them out, I would get more attached to them, and like, they would get attached to me. So we like get friendly. We would get a good bond, and it'd be kind of hard seeing these animals going through a hard, like, for example, they'd be sick, and they get really really sick, and it'd be kind of sad seeing them like pass away. Or another time we'd be driving around the nearby town, we would see these stranded animals outside, like, and we would decide to just help them out and pick them up and just take them to an animal rescue so they could eventually get adopted and find a loving family. So to help out, we took them to the animal rescue and get adopted. And as I grew older and older, I started seeing more and more of this in movies and in the news. Like I saw dog fights and like cockfights, and it got me really, really like agitated and angry, like that. Who would do this to these animals? So I decided to, on my free time, I decided to volunteer at the rescue. You can do volunteer work anytime you want there. There, I was able to get a better understanding what these animals went through on a day-to-day basis, and like you can see their pain in their eyes when they would be unloved and unwanted by a family. They would just leave them on the streets with no like remorse for their lives. But furthermore, as a community, we can achieve anything if we just try. Like we can get more people to volunteer at these animal rescues, to help out these animals. And there are some people around the world who like have the power to get everyone's attention. For example, like social media. If like you have the power to make viral videos, you should use that power to spread the awareness of these animals, and together we can stop this cruelty. Thank you.
Okay, so before I knew what an invasive species was, I only appreciated nature for its beauty. I didn't pay much attention to how it functioned. I didn't care enough to. I enjoyed walking through a forest and admiring the different colors surrounding me, but never stopped to think about how it got there. Before I knew what an invasive species was, I was ignorant to the relationship that wildlife shared with each other. To me, the food chain was nothing but a source of food. I was not aware that there was lack thereof. There were no bad plants or animals. It was survival of the fittest. Before I knew what an invasive species was, my sympathy for our environment went as far as recycling a plastic water bottle. I didn't think I needed to partake in volunteer work. I didn't think my services were needed. But that was before I found out that invasive species are a leading threat to native wildlife. While working with the Palos Restoration Project, I learned that invasive species spread really fast, making it very easy to take over a land and wipe out the natives, causing extinction and a decrease to biodiversity. Without biodiversity, ecosystems are altered. With an altered ecosystems, food webs are either destroyed or replaced. And although it may not seem like it, in some cases, invasive species impact our economy as well. Zebra mussels are small shell-like animals that attach themselves to hard surfaces like boats, which is how they travel, and end up clogging major pipes that deliver and process water into cities and factories, costing the U.S. over $1 million to remove. There are tons of ways to stop the spread of invasive species. For plants, stopping the spread could be done by removing and killing the invaders. They could also be prevented. Spreading the word and being aware of invasive species while planting your garden could reduce the risk of them ever being there. So saying no to exotic plants that will dominate and outcompete with natives, and say yes to native plants. The more natural our ecosystems, the more sustainable life is for all of us.
I would like to start this speech off with the answer to a question rather than the question itself. The answer is anything and everything. What's the question, you ask? The question is, what can I do to help? How can I lend a hand to help my community and myself? A lot of people tend to shy away from answering this question or even asking the question because they don't want to believe in what's going on in the world or their community. I used to be like that. I used to be a naive kid, not caring what's going on. I remember being a little kid playing at a park near my house, and I was there every day. I was there every day, baseball, kickball, football, whatever sport, we played it at the park. As I got older, I noticed that the playground at this park was starting to get really dirty and really disgusting. It was covered with graffiti. There was bottles everywhere. Parents told us that we couldn't go there at night. It was bad. I never really felt like cleaning it up. I didn't think that it was my responsibility. I figured that the village would come in and do it, or another nice Samaritan would come in and do it. When I was about 10 years old, my parents told me that the park was being torn down. I couldn't figure out why it was being torn down. I just went along with it. To my knowledge, my parents told me that it was being torn down because it was filthy. It was disgusting. There was graffiti everywhere. It covered the slides. If I had known that all I had to do was clean the graffiti up or pick up some plastic bottles, I would have. It's really not hard to help. Since participating with Payless's restoration project, it has for sure opened up my eyes. I hope the speech opens up your guys' eyes. Every day we can make a difference and save, more and more of our planet little by little. When you walk by a piece of garbage, just pick it up. If it goes in the recycling, throw it in the recycling. If it goes in the regular garbage, throw it in the regular garbage. If you see like a building defaced, you see like writing everywhere, just wipe it off. Things like this have a potential to spark a wildfire of help in our communities. We need to advocate for our communities and help preserve, our nature's beauty. And we need to realize that without nature, we lose our beauty essentially. I would like everyone in the room to, for a few seconds, picture yourself in a field or at a park where there's lots of green, a lot of trees, and then take that and just replace it with concrete. Pretty plain, right? It is our responsibility as a human race to keep our planet clean. I ask you all to stand up for your community and help the cause. Let's clean up our communities and provide safe places for our children and our children's children to play at. Let's be the change that this world needs, and destroying our planet is actually a crime. And when I say crime, I mean it literal. Littering is a crime. You can get fined for it. People shouldn't be getting away with just leaving their garbage everywhere. There's only one planet Earth. Let's avoid having to move to Mars and just clean up this planet before we decide to go to another one and destroy that one too. I'm going to end this speech with probably one of the biggest cliches ever. Please reduce, please reuse, and please recycle. Let's try and save our planet. Thank you.
Okay, hello, my name is Ashley Dobbs. Before I start my speech, how many of you have either a loved one or a friend or a family member that has been affected by cancer? Okay, so here's my story. So one day when I was about 15 or 16, I was in the car with my grandfather and my mom. And so they were on their way taking me to work, and my grandfather had told me that he had been diagnosed with cancer. And it hurt me because, he's like one of my favorite people in the world. And so, but it wasn't just the physical damage that I was worried about, it was the mental trauma that comes with it. So, fortunately, he survived his battle because he caught it in the early stages, but I always felt as if he could have benefited from some kind of therapy of some sort to help him get through it. Which is why, luckily, there are places like the Cancer Support Center, which is a nonprofit organization, to help people who don't have the insurance to afford maybe mental evaluations, dealing with such diseases as cancer. I know you're just probably wondering, why don't they just go to a therapist if they're depressed or if they're feeling like, this cancer is going to kill me. Well, like I said previously, not everyone has the same insurance or even to be able to even cover their bills for chemo or radiation. So, a lot of people they kind of forget about that when they get diagnosed with a disease. So they just kind of sort of just, it goes underdiagnosed. According to the mesothelioma group, depending on the prognosis the patient has received, it may not be possible to simply encourage a positive attitude, and it may not be possible to remind the patient that it will eventually get better. But this does not mean that treating cancer patients with mental health conditions is not valuable or necessary. Because mental health conditions are believed to be underdiagnosed in cancer patients, it is wise to take a proactive approach to detecting these conditions. So with that being said, that means that, we can still treat patients for mental conditions when they're dealing with this disease. So what can we do to help spread the word about this issue? We can provide support to those who are living with cancer. We can raise public awareness. We can educate the public about cancer and the mental trauma that goes along with it. Like I said before, insurance access. And the time to take action is now, because if we don't pay attention to it or bring a solution to it, then it'll just keep getting simply thrown under the rug. And just like any other issue, this is just as important as any other social responsibility.
Hi guys. So growing up, I've always loved kids. Wanted to babysit. Once I wanted to be a nanny, and I just always liked them. I was interested. So just last year in high school, I took a class called Childhood Development, and we had our own preschool setting, and we got to teach the kids. And what I noticed was the kids, they weren't bad per se. They just really didn't like each other. And so we taught them subjects like math, science, and reading. And I wondered, why don't these kids like each other if they are with each other all day long and they play with each other, but they play roughly? So for my service learning project, I went to the Moraine Valley Children Learning Center, and I noticed the difference. Those children liked each other, they were polite, and they were very, very, very easy to get along with. They actually ran up to me and they were like, "Oh, are you gonna stay here all week? Do you work here now?" I'm like, "No, sorry guys." So I was thinking maybe if we taught the children how to be polite in preschool and daycares and things, that maybe their generation would be much better than our generation. I'm not saying that we're like barbarians or anything, but we could be a little bit nicer to each other. I asked one of the teachers why the kids were so nice to each other, and she said simply, because we teach them how to be nice. We sat at the lunch table together, and we served each other, and one little 4-year-old was like, "Would you like this? Here you go." And I said, "How does he even know how to serve people? Do you want a scoop of this? Here you go." I'm like, "Thank you." And I was just surprised, because who would ever think that a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old would know how to be polite? But this generation can help that generation become nice, sweet, and responsible. It all starts when you're 4 years old, and that respect should be a subject along with math, reading, and science. Thank you.
Okay, so my father came to the United States from Israel at the age of only 5 years old. So he didn't know a word of English. It was pretty difficult for him to go from one lifestyle to another. And they came here due to a lot of religious fightings. My family is Christian, so they're in a highly populated area with Muslims and Jewish people. So it was just a lot of like religious tension, and there was just a lot of fighting going on there. So it was just not a safe place to live, and my grandparents did not want to raise children there. So they came here legally. So there was a long process with coming here. There's a lot of paperwork to be done, and a lot of people have to wait a really long time to come here. So as soon as they got their paperwork, it was basically like they had to get out and get out now. So there was no time to sell their house, no time to say goodbye to their friends and family. No time to, they basically just had to up and leave just within kind of a couple hours. And they each got one suitcase and had to fit whatever they possibly can into that suitcase. I want you guys to all kind of like think about your family, your friends, and your pets, and just your favorite places to go, your favorite places to eat, and think about that all being ripped away from you. That's what a lot of people who are coming from other countries have to deal with when they're coming to the United States. When I worked with the English as a second language students, I heard many stories similar to these. There was many kids that were here without their families, many wives that were waiting for their husbands to come here, and many other stories that were pretty similar to this. Each one of the stories broke my heart just as much as the last, and it's really sad to hear that these people have to go through this, because I couldn't imagine having to leave and go to another country myself. So these people are dealing with a really tough change, but I kind of want to focus on kids in a school setting. The schools in the United States are not really taking that great of care with educating immigrant students. According to the Center for Public Education, there's common benchmarks for English language proficiency, and the states vary what they consider English ready. So in one state, certain qualifications can be met, but in another it might take more qualifications to be considered English ready. Students are not being reclassified as English proficient at the 3 to 6 year mark as they should be, so a lot of these students are actually losing what they have been learning the whole time. And lastly, when they are reclassified, it's often based orally rather than like their reading and writing skills, so they're not actually ready to succeed in an English-only speaking classroom. Some of you might be thinking, well, what does this even have to do with me? Like, that's not even my problem. But I want you to think about your fellow immigrant classmates. They have just as much of a right to education as you and I do. Someday they're going to be out there in the real world with us because they're here now, they're learning with us. Some of them will go on and become doctors, possibly saving your life someday. Some of them will become police officers and lawyers, and firemen, protecting us from crime and tragedy. Some will become lawyers, defending us from the law, and some of them will become teachers, possibly even teaching your own child someday. We live in America, a place that many claim to be the greatest in the world, so let's give these people life that they hope for, because when we work together, we're really broadening our society and making it a better place for all of us to live. And so if you guys care, or if you just want to help out, you can talk to your teachers, ask them if they have things like we have at Moraine Valley, like the ESL learning circles, where people can learn to speak English without having kind of like a lot of pressure being on them. It's a little more informal for them to start learning. Ask your teacher, your dean, or your principal how they're assessing these people, and if they're not, talk to them about how you can go about changing that. And when we strengthen these things, we can start focusing on a better tomorrow.
Hi. Hi. Have you ever felt like you were out of place or just outside the crowd? Many immigrants in this country who spend every day of their life without their citizenship feel this, I guess, feeling every day of their lives because they don't have their citizenship yet and they're working towards passing the test. And a lot of us can relate to this because most of our family went through this sometime in their life. Either our grandparents or our mothers and fathers all had to go through the citizenship test. For me, my mother and her family came here from Poland, and they all had to leave their house, just go and get out because they had a chance to come to America. However, they left my grandpa behind to watch over the house, just to make sure it was like in proper care, because they also had a farm to look after, so they didn't want to just leave animals behind and forget about them. And the problem that happened to them later on in their life, when my mother and her sister all had their families going, they had kids and husbands, was that my aunt was accused of living here illegally because she didn't have her citizenship, but she was married to a U.S. citizen, which gave her a right to have citizenship. So they ended up giving her a few days to get ready to be deported back to Poland. And this news was really devastating to my mother and my aunt's husband. So my mother did the right thing, and she sent my younger brother, who was, I think, like 8 at the time. She sent my younger brother to go with her to Poland to like give her reassurance that she'll be coming back to America soon, and to not be scared about leaving her family behind in America because they'll be safe. I was confused when I heard this story because I didn't understand why it was such a big deal to be just deported back to Poland for a few weeks. But when I grew up, I realized that it was really stressful to be ripped away from a country again, to go back to your hometown and leave everything behind again. And I believe this is a really good thing to support others in their time of need, because it is something we should all do to help each other out, because it's really tough to go through that, what my aunt went through. And this is where we should help immigrants that are not living here with a citizenship yet, who are in fear every day because they can have or get deported just because they don't have citizenship. This is where we can go attend citizenship classes or help people that do not speak English learn their English language so they could adapt and learn about all our governments and all the other subjects to pass the citizenship test. And I attended the citizenship class here at Moraine, and all the students there were really grateful to have all the help they can get when somebody new came in with more knowledge to pass on to them. And especially with the presidential campaign that's going on with Donald Trump, who's stirring a lot of problems about the immigrant policy in America today, it is really urgent that we make smart decisions and think about the actions we do before we do them, so we can give a fair chance to all the immigrants that are living here in the United States in fear. With this knowledge in mind, I believe it is crucial that we realize how important it is to treat immigrants fairly. We should be less judgmental and start helping immigrants out rather than wondering why they don't have their citizenship yet or why they don't speak English well.
In our generation today, people are so hung up on having materialistic objects such as brand names, watches, jewelry, and everything that is flashy that they end up losing themselves along the way. As individuals, we start competing against each other to prove who is better based on the items we have, not the personality traits. When I first moved to America, I was about 7 years old, and I didn't have no friends. I didn't know English. I only know how to say hello or like dog or cat. So I basically learned English through watching TV, and I actually made a friend that her name was Brigida, and she was Lithuanian, so we had a lot in common. And I remember I was going to her house one day, and her mom and my mom became really good friends. And I remember it was really cold that day, and I took her slippers, and she slapped me in the face. And her mom actually didn't do anything about it, which made me really upset because I was thinking to myself, like, how are slippers more important than a friend? She was so fixated on an object that losing me wasn't really a big deal to her. Everything turned into a false friendship that I no longer wanted to keep. Back in the day, people did not have the things that we have today, yet they were completely fine without them because they valued what they had. For example, in today's society, as we walk in the city of downtown, at every corner there's a homeless person sitting and begging for money, although we just pass through and move on with our day thinking nothing of it, when in reality, it is another human just as equal as the richest man on the planet, trying to make it through another day in this chaotic world. People usually assume right away that if we give money, they will go and turn to drugs. So why give money when you can do so much more? For example, buying them food, giving them blankets, even giving them a hand and getting them back on their feet. In our generation, we like to judge people and take things from them to make ourselves feel better. But objects don't define who we are, and that is what most people don't understand. Going to the service learning for food pantry to help ones in need changed my perspective on my life. I valued stuff more now that when I was at service learning, I watched people sitting there and just every face had different expressions and every face had a story to tell. And I worked with apples and I was actually giving them out. And each family that came across to get a bag, they all could get 2 bags, but most of them took 1 because each of them said that most people will need it more, other bigger families. So that really impacted me because when I lost a lot of things, I didn't really care for them. And now that what I have, I value more. It made me realize that people with so little value so much more than most of us today. We can always help out at the food pantry and start a fundraiser or even bring food for families that are in need. So don't take things for granted. And I just want to end it with a quote by Sigmund Freud. He once said, "It is important to escape the impression that people commonly use false standard of measurement, that they seek power, success, and wealth for themselves and admire them in others, and that they underestimate what is the true value in life."
Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Lopez, and I'm speaking about immigration. Now imagine just being not quite ripped away from a country, but just being dropped off, maybe just forced to move a country where you know nothing of the language, nothing of the culture, and you're just trying to make a living, just get by. And that's how it was for my grandmother. My grandmother came when she was 14 to the U.S. in 1964. It was her and a few of her friends. They went from their small village in the northern province of Durango, Mexico, to one of the border towns in the Rio Grande named Juarez. There they stayed with one of their aunts, and the next day they crossed the Rio Grande into the U.S. They had a friend on the U.S. side of the border who quickly found them jobs, and with my grandmother working as a live-in housekeeper. She worked for 5 years for a Texan family, just cleaning, probably doing laundry and stuff like that, just doing like housework and stuff like that. Except she was 14, and like the oldest daughter was probably 18. So a housekeeper that was younger than the children in the house, the oldest child was doing all the work. Actually, is that child labor? I don't know. What do you guys think? No, but for most part, it was hard for my grandmother. The pay wasn't great, and she sent a majority of it back to Mexico to help her mother, who had 5 other children, and was by herself. So, and the just living, it wasn't the pay that was difficult. It was the people as well. According to her, back then, a lot of people were, I wouldn't say racist, but they were heavily against just undocumented immigrants being there. It was to the point where my grandmother couldn't even go to church or go in many public places at all without being threatened with like, get out of here, also call immigration and stuff. So as you can imagine, that was pretty stressful. As a housekeeper, my grandmother had to, like, she could not go to sleep until everything was cleaned. If it wasn't clean, she risked getting fired for not doing her job. and the guy, and it was even more, I wouldn't say time consuming, more just more work whenever the Texan family had like a party or event such like that. She was the one that would clean up after everything. And well, also she since she grew up in Mexico, she knew Spanish. Any English she knew, she picked up on the way. She didn't have time or money to go to English classes. She didn't have anyone who was really fluent in English that could help her. So she had to figure it out, and she just learned bits and pieces just from wherever she could. The ESL is English as a second language, which was founded about 4 years ago by the dean Michael Morkitz. I can't pronounce names at all. For my service learning, I went there, and I met a bunch of different people with many different backgrounds. Some of them share the same stories, others more so than others. And that's also where I met Jacqueline. Now her story is this. She came from Brazil. Now in Brazil there's been civil unrest, especially because of the corruption of one of the political parties who has been in power for a couple years. Well, it's just corrupt, been bribed, and all that stuff, and it's civil unrest right now. She came here to escape it, and she had difficulty learning English. More so, she was worried about was not learning English. More so, she was worried about the friends and family she left behind. While all she has to deal with here is maybe making the rents and pay, and just learning English. Back in her home country, she has to worry about if there's going to be a government crackdown, and if her family, one of her family or friends is going to be in there. Are they going to be hurt? Are they going to be jailed? She has to know, and she has to deal with that every day. All I could do really was tell her to be fine, and just try to convince her that. I hope I did a good job. I truly do respect her for that because I don't think I could ever persevere in something like that. Probably break down. Now most of these problems seem like there's nothing we can do. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't pull any miracles last second. It takes time, and for a majority of us, our time is precious, or we don't want to give up time, or it just seems like any work we put towards it will be just forgotten or just ultimately futile. But it's not. The thing is, there is a lot we can do. It can be as simple as just helping an immigrant, just someone who has trouble speaking English, just or for them if they have trouble speaking. That's a bad symbol. No, but just make friends with the immigrants. Try to understand them. Simply viewing them not as what most of the country has come to see them. Immigrants are job stealers. Immigrants destroy American culture. All right, now, and let me tell you this: if you were not an American, you are a descendant of immigrants. Unless you are Native American, you are not truly. You cannot claim that immigrants destroy America. You most likely you were an immigrant. You were an immigrant. Your family was immigrants or something alike. So just don't view the same immigrants in the same view that most of the country has to do. And for God's sake, please don't vote for Trump. He'll destroy us all. No, but in all seriousness though. Keep in mind that the United States of America is a democracy. We put the people in power, and if you want to help reform immigration system, you want to allow immigrants in the country and not just be racist them. Just keep in mind the political figures, their agendas, what they promise, and all that stuff. Just remember it, and we can't change for the better. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'd like to discuss about how littering affected me as when I was a young teenager at the age of 14. when I went to a campground in Wisconsin with my parents. It was a tragic day when we went to an open lake where it was found to be vile. To begin with, there was cans of Coca-Cola, candy wrappers, and cigarettes floating on the water that polluted it with an awful color of green. Even more so, there was a pungent smell of a foul odor that lurked the air, and there was no fish to be found. It was a disaster. My parents and I were infuriated. We asked ourselves how someone could do this to the environment and not worry about how toxic this could be to the wildlife that could cause many fish to die. This needed to stop. There should be no one that should be able to destroy the environment ruthlessly without understanding how harmful littering can be to our ecosystem. Let me explain to you how I became more passionate about this issue when I teamed up with the Forest Preserve District of Cook County. Recently, it wasn't until being with the Forest Preserve District of Cook County that I started to realize how hazardous littering can be when I teamed to work with Dan, Braden, and Jackson, who were part of the Forest Preserve group. We went to a forest preserve in Trail Woods where we searched for damaged trees. However, we came to a stop when we found trash bags, broken furniture, and silverware that was laying on the ground. We became astonished. If people and animals lurked in the area, then they could get seriously hurt. We all looked at each other for a moment and felt a sense of anger as we can understand why someone could have not thrown away material in a nearby dumpster. If only people had second thoughts about throwing trash away, they could make a positive change and the world would be a better place. Now, there's a choice that everyone makes that could affect the world positively or negatively. For example, research on a litter cost study shows that litter cleanup costs the U.S. more than an estimated $11.5 billion each year. Furthermore, another study on marine littering shows that littering is impacting marine wildlife as seabirds and turtles mistakenly see litter as something edible and they could possibly eat it and choke to death. The choice is yours. You have the decision to act, or you have the decision to stand there and let the environment crumble. However, it is imperative that we do act. We need to go out and sign a petition that will convince Congress to be more active in the prevention of littering. For example, we could tell Congress to inform children when they are young the dangers of littering and how it harms the environment. The more the next generation knows about the harms of littering, the better society will be to prevent littering from happening. Thank you.
Have you ever starved yourself in your life before? I can most likely inform you that most of you have never gone through that. Unfortunately, 1 in every 9 people on our planet go to bed hungry each night. It honestly astonishes me that every year we make more and more improvements with technology, but don't improve as much with food insecurity. It's time to make a change and act upon it, not just say it. I've always been blessed growing up having food and stuff that been provided with food on the table ever since I was born. Growing up, I never struggled with food insecurity, yet there was times when money was a problem with my family and stuff like that. I actually imagine, I can remember one time my freshman year when things started getting harder for my family and I. My dad wasn't working as much, and we had just been evicted from our house, and we lost a lot of personal things. I remember actually one day coming home from school, and my parents were both arguing and stuff because they didn't have enough money to buy us food or provide food on the tables for my siblings and I, and we were a family of 5. It got really harder and stuff like that. We used to live in Payless, and we ended up leaving Payless and going to Burbank. I can remember that day, I wanted something to eat, and I couldn't even it wasn't that I was embarrassed or I was sad. It's just I was hungry. The rest of the day went by slowly, sitting in the cold living room, staring at the ceiling, thinking of all the times I had thrown or wasted food. The empty feeling in the middle of my stomach I had would simply not go away, and it was the worst feeling anybody could ever have. Now imagine feeling that feeling every second, minute, and hour of the day. We would all go insane. The vast majority of hungry people, 780 out of 795 million people, live in developing countries. About a month ago, I volunteered at the St. Blaise Food Pantry in Summit and helped provide people with food. I will never forget how much impact those people had on me as well as myself to them. It was such a great experience. I had lending a hand out and doing something that benefits somebody other than just yourself. Walking in, I was so nervous due to the fact that I had never done something like that before, and fear struck me. It was getting to the end of the food drive. Most of the people had gotten around and had left. I think it was when it hit me the most, helping out and seeing the children with the parents. I know I never had that I had gone through that because I always been like blessed, but there was times like when we didn't have money problems. By the end, most of the family had already been gone, and once they were left, were supposed to be put back in for the next food drive. I'd only been there for a couple hours, and during those hours, I realized how lucky I had been chosen. I had chosen to chose that program as well as having food to come home. Everyone can relate to this because we eat every day and are lucky we have a way to get food to us. No matter how we manage to maintain food and we're able to eat and starve. It surprises me how before going in that day, I thought it was just going to hand out food and leave afterwards. As a researcher, your job is to inquire information of a certain subject and discover facts about it. I went in that day with the expectation of lending out a hand and writing about what I had discovered while volunteering. I came out being so grateful for all the hard work both my parents put in every day to provide food on the table and with a smile on my face. Seeing all those people at the food pantry asking for food reminded me of all the tough times my family and I had faced back in the summer of 2010. I think till this day it's one of the main reasons I can't stand here and ask you all to volunteer, get involved, and do something about food insecurity. It doesn't take much time to find a local park, district church, or get people together to start a food drive for those who need our help. Everyone and anyone can make a difference in a person's life. Getting people food and volunteering to donate to food drives and helping out distributing food to people who need it is just the worst. It's just the beginning to something that can become a much powerful message all around the world. Like I said, unfortunately, 1 in every 9 people in our planet go to bed hungry each night. Marquee staff, make a change and act. Help them eat, not starve. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christian Rapeza. I was born and raised in Chicago with my mom, dad, and brother. As a little kid, I was always fascinated with nature and wild animals. Growing up, I had many types of pets you can name it, from mammals to reptiles and amphibians. My dad was the one who introduced me to animals at such a young age. He taught me the right way how to care for them, how to handle them, to make sure that every animal was fine with them. As I grew older, so did my passion for animals, and I'm right now proceeding to be a veterinarian or a zoology, I'm not sure. I had a chance to volunteer at the Animal Welfare League, where I was kind of shocked to find out that most of the animals that were from there are just due for neglection. Like, most of these animals lose their freedom, and for the rest of their life, they are in a kennel if they don't get adopted, and it's all because of humans like us and you guys that buy animals and say, I love this little puppy, he looks cute and everything, but at the end of the day, when he grows older and he becomes a mature dog, they don't have the responsibility anymore. The people lose interest in the dog. They don't have financially, they can't support them, they can't take them to a vet. So that's where animal shelter, they come in. That's where they take them in, and it's sad to know that they are kind of like in prison, if you think about it in a way. Most people don't want to think about it, but they are. The Animal Welfare League is a non-profit organization, which they rely mostly on us to donate money and time. And this is not even just like money. You could also donate many other things, from toys, from newspapers, from treats, any little thing. All these things really make a big impact on these animals to make them live a little bit more comfortable in the area, because as I said, they are in a really small kennel. It's not like they could go like your normal dogs out there. You could take them for walks. They can't do this. They lose all this privilege. Animal neglection has become a global issue all around us. You find abusive animals everywhere around the country. You can find street dogs. You can find cats out there, and it's all mainly because of us. Not us, but I mean like humans not doing the research, like I said, and they let their dogs out there. And it's also sad to know that there's not really strictly laws against animal cruelty or animal neglection, because most animal cases don't go recordedly. Most people that do animal neglection don't report it, and that's when it comes to us for our responsibility to see when we see animal neglection or we see animal cruelty, it's our responsibility to call in. And it doesn't take that much to just pick up the phone, call 911 or your animal shelter or anything like that, and to report it. And that's where mostly we have to try on, because we don't do it. And it's something that's really dumb for us not to do, because most people see a dog, you see a dog every time chained up, and most of us won't even do anything about it. We just say, oh, we feel bad about it. But is it really hard for us just to call 911 or, like I said, the animal shelter and report it? I mean, you are saving an animal's life, which I would think that would make everyone happy. I mean, I don't know anyone that wouldn't want to save an animal's life, except if you have no heart. A famous article that I've read, and it was written by Cesar Millan. Most of you guys know him maybe by the Dog Whisperer. He's a professional animal trainer. He said the 2 key ideas to stop animal neglection is to teach our kids and to teach people how the right way to care for animals, and simply what not to do in an animal. And I was lucky enough for my dad to teach me the right way to handle and care for an animal. And it's just simple as that. Like, now I taught my little brother how to handle our reptiles and how to handle our mammals, and I'm happy to feel that even my little nephew, my little brother, has taught him how to handle our reptiles, how to handle our snakes, how to handle everything. And it's really nice to know that hopefully that generation keeps going on and everything goes well with that. Going back to Cesar Millan, his 2 famous keys to stop animal neglect were, one was simply to spread the awareness out there. And it's really not that hard. Most of you guys out here have social media, some type of it, and you guys see ads of how to stop this, and it's not that hard to like or share. And I actually said the other one was to stop, to teach our kids and everything. So that was the second one. And let us help our animals. Let us be our eyes and ears. And thank you.
Hi. I had a note card. Couldn't find it, so gonna have to go with the flow. I'll start this off with a few facts. 14% of Americans live in poverty, and 21% of children in America also live in poverty. Growing up, I don't want to say I lived in poverty, because thankfully I had parents that they worked long hours. So sometimes when they didn't have food, they found a way to get food. But I knew that they were struggling, because at times, like out of the week, I wouldn't see my dad because he would be working either 2 jobs or 3 jobs, depending on if a job laid him off or something. But after we grew up, we moved into my dad got a good job, and we settled into a nice neighborhood. Later, I had this assignment for school where they made us ask our parents what their biggest fear was. And what my dad told me was his biggest fear was one of his children coming home hungry and he didn't have food on the table for him. And at the time, I didn't really think much of it, because it was just a school assignment for high school. I just wanted to turn it in. But then after I did my volunteer work at Chicago Food Depository, I got to meet a lot of people, and a lot of them were mostly adults who were just taking time out of their day to help out. And it was funny because I met some guy that he was a father as well, and I asked him why are you here when, I don't know, you could be with your family or something. And he said because he is now he has a good enough job where he doesn't have to work long hours like my dad did. And he told me the exact, I didn't even ask him, he just told me that when there was a time in his life where he had to go to food pantries, and he was too, not embarrassed, but he just didn't want his family to know how he was getting the food. And he said that his biggest fear was the same thing, was coming home with his kids hungry and he didn't have anything to feed them. And that's when I kind of knew that this whole poverty and people not having to feed the children, it's a big issue. Not just for like my family, but it's also a lot of people. And it doesn't really matter what like ethnicity you are, or what race or religion. Like poverty and like a hunger can hit your family like out of nowhere. Like I'm not saying like go home like scared, but you never know. Like jobs aren't always that stable, but like you never know when you're gonna be put in a situation where you're gonna have to go to a food pantry because you can't afford food. So what I'm advising is when I did this service learning, I really didn't have like the time to like physically. Well, I didn't think I had the time because I have school and then I have work. But after I went, not only like did I feel the need of going back, but also doing a little bit more. Because you don't have to like take time every day to help out to donate food. You could just I know a lot of you have like a whole like cabinet where you just have canned food, and sometimes you don't even use it. You just have it there, and then you wait a whole year, and then you just throw it out. I would suggest stuff like that. You could just put it in a box and take it to your local pantry, or take it to the great food depository, where they'll just take it to another local pantry. Or if you have a couple of like bucks spare, like $5-10, you could go on their website and actually like shop for food, and you'll pay for it, and they'll get it, and then they'll distribute it. But for me, I think it would be better if you actually volunteer, because that way you actually feel and like you talk to people who had the same experience, and it's nice to know that you're actually making an impact rather than just like going online and just like spending money, because that doesn't bring the same feeling as you physically going and putting in the work. And not it doesn't have to be some like you could start your own food pantry too at your local school, library, or park. So it's really not that hard. It will take like maybe a day out of your week, but it makes a big impact on people like that. Like because I guarantee you, if you go home and you ask your parents the same thing, what's your biggest fear, they'll probably joke around with you, but like if you really like ask them, they'll probably tell you the same thing. This is the biggest fear is them coming home and not having food on the table for the kids. So yeah, that's it.
All right. For the most part, my whole life, my mom has been a single parent. And so 99% of the time, I was with my grandparents. And so because my mom would be at work for until probably around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. So the people that would be feeding me would be my grandparents. They would be watching me, and my grandparents came from Ireland. They and they're very old school, very traditional. So in an Irish household, every feast is every meal is a feast. So my grandma did all the cooking, and she was very nutritious and very strict about health. And so, when she passed away, my grandfather was just kind of left in the dust. He has dementia, so it was up to my family to help him. Just to take care of him, and he didn't really know how to cook too much. So my family would bring him small little meals, but taking care of a dementia patient is very hard. So when it came time, we all made the decision to put him in an assisted living home. He's been in there for about a year now, and my whole family constantly made visits to him. And very quickly, I've noticed about him that he just did not look right.
he looked very weak, and I've noticed that he refused to eat the food that he was given. So my family and I just would bring him home cooked meals. He loved it. And little by little, I saw my grandfather, but I mean, we couldn't take care of him, so it was up to us to try to get him to like eat better. I asked a few of the nurses, and she said that there's not too much we can do. So when it came time to do our service learning project, I chose to do it with a CNSSA. And you may be familiar with the Meals on Wheels organization, and what they do is I visited the Homewood location. So when for the Meals on Wheels, basically for incapable elderly citizens, they would bring them healthy, nutritious meals. And when it came time, when it was time for me to bring awareness, so when it came time for me to bring awareness to the situation of elderly nutrition, a lot of people don't really focus on elderly nutrition too much because of the fact that people are more focused on infant health, baby health, and pregnant woman health. But I mean, elderly, even though they're coming up of age, it's not a reason just to decline their health. One of three elderly citizens is malnourished. Now, what you can do to help with the situation is just simply find out your go to can't even put into words, I'm sorry. Basically, I'm sorry, but basically just help any elderly person, whether it's a family member or whatever, help them get into an organization like the CNSSA, and slowly we can help them become healthier and they can live longer. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we had a good first day. We've got about, not everybody's listed up there, but we do have about 10 more speakers, which we'll have on Wednesday, okay? But I just want to say for our first group, you all did an amazing job. I know it's not easy to come up here, and that's part of the reason we're doing it, so that you could become more comfortable, more confident, and inspire more people. So thanks for today. See you guys on Wednesday. And thank you for our audience member. Thank you.